On Thursday, BBC2 will be showing Witness for the Prosecution, the screen version of Agatha Christie's play. Charles Laughton gives a memorable performance as a brilliant but ill-tempered barrister defending a client accused of murder with the evidence mounting against him. That's at 6:35 on BBC2 next Thursday. In 10 minutes on BBC1, Esther Ranson and the team will be investigating the week's odd, amusing and more serious stories in That's Life. But now it's time for the news with Jan Leeming.
A Soviet spy master leaves Britain proclaiming, "I'm a sailor, not a spy." Ken Livingstone invites Republican Gerry Adams to London. Appalling, say the critics. Ian Smith and why he says he won't be silenced in Zimbabwe. The Soviet naval attaché accused by Britain of spying has been flown home to Moscow, still maintaining that he's just a sailor, not a spy. Captain Anatoly Zotov left his Kensington flat early this morning to catch the Moscow plane from Heathrow. Britain had ordered him out by next Wednesday, accusing him of activities incompatible with his status, a diplomatic way of saying he's a spy. Christopher Morris watched him go.
The Soviet spy master left his London flat at dawn. There was a fixed smile, but no comment, and certainly no hint he was finally on his way back to Moscow. The packing had been done overnight, and Captain Zotov was driven alone to the airport by another diplomat from the Soviet embassy. Here at the embassy, Captain Zotov's ignominious departure is undoubtedly a serious blow for Soviet military intelligence operations in Britain. He tried to recruit Soviet agents, and although the Foreign Office insists Captain Zotov's activities did not endanger Britain's security, particular Soviet interest was shown in the Falklands conflict. The naval attaché himself, a former submarine officer, tried to find out all about the long-range deployment of nuclear submarines, about any nuclear weapons carried aboard the warships of the task force in the South Atlantic. At London Airport, Captain Zotov made his exit in arrogant style, discarding his raincoat to display the black uniform and gold braid of a captain first class of the Soviet Navy. And Captain Zotov, unrepentant, declared that spying allegations against him were without foundation, were all lies. In Moscow, there'll be a reunion with his wife Nina, but diplomatic disgrace too for the Soviet spy who was unmasked.
A visit to London later this month by a delegation from Sinn Féin, the IRA's political wing, has led to protests from many politicians. Two Sinn Féin members elected to the new Northern Ireland Assembly, Gerry Adams and Danny Morrison, have been invited by the GLC leader Ken Livingstone and 25 Labour councillors. Mr Richard Brew, the Conservative leader on the GLC, said the trip to London was horrific and appalling. And Mr Merlin Rees, the former Labour Northern Ireland Secretary, said they should be told that democratic socialists do not believe in the politics of the gun. Clive Ferguson reports.
After Gerry Adams and Sinn Féin's victories in the recent Assembly elections, the IRA's political wing has been capitalising on the propaganda value of the results. And they say they'll use the proposed visit to state the Republican view of events in Ulster.
And anyone who is bitter and opposes our visit, I think, is exposing themselves to the fact that they want to censor what exactly is going on. I mean, it's been largely a one-way traffic from Britain to Ireland for 800 years. Now what's wrong with Republican representatives who are elected going to the English people, speaking to the media and anyone with influence, politicians, trade unionists, anyone at all, about our side of the case?
Islington Town Hall is one venue the Sinn Féin delegation will visit and be welcomed by one local councillor, even though he accepts that Adams and Morrison support violence.
But nevertheless, people who have been elected as representatives of the people in Northern Ireland, we take the view, and it's a view that I certainly take very strongly, that you can't have it both ways. You can't on the one hand urge people to take part in legitimate political activity, and then when they do so and are elected, refuse to talk to them, as Jim Pryor has done.
There are certain to be more protests about the Labour group in the GLC making the invitation. Unionist MPs may well raise the subject in the Commons. Tory GLC members have already said it's just another example of Ken Livingstone meddling in affairs that shouldn't concern him.
A Home Office spokesman referring to the proposed visit said United Kingdom citizens were free to travel wherever they wished. It was up to the police to apply for exclusion or detention orders if they considered any visit undesirable. There's been another demonstration against the authorities in Argentina by veterans of the Falklands campaign. They say they've had no help in finding jobs, no war pensions or compensation for war wounds, and inadequate medical treatment. The latest disturbance was at a ceremony in the city of La Plata, where medals were to be presented to those who fought in the Falklands War.
Just as the medals were about to be awarded, about 300 ex-combatants fell to the floor and beat their fists against the ground. Some of them shouted insults against the government and the military, including one of Argentina's most popular street slogans, "The military dictatorship will end." Foreign newsmen had not been allowed to attend the military ceremony. But local reporters said at one stage an unidentified officer pulled his pistol on one of the veterans amid shouting and scuffling. The veteran ignored the weapon and continued a tirade of insults against the officers until he was led from the hall by his comrades.
In Zimbabwe, Ian Smith says he's sad about the police raid on his home in which personal documents were taken away. It follows the confiscation of his passport last week, apparently because of remarks the former Prime Minister is said to have made in America. Philip Hayton reports from Mr. Smith's farm south of the capital.
Mr. Smith was on his farm with his cattle this afternoon, looking unruffled and unrepentant. He says the government has begun